Hi everyone, welcome to part 3 of this tutorial series on how to create this red robin hedge. In part 1 we hand painted our leaf and branch components in Photoshop. In part 2 we modelled our hedge using Blender's geometry nodes. In this part we're going to use Substance Designer to create our textures. We'll be making extensive use of the scatter nodes and the spline nodes to place the leaves along our branches for realistic looking foliage. So first we need to create a new package and a new graph. So let's go up to File, New, Substance Graph. We will call our first graph Hedge Base. We'll leave everything else at default at the moment and we'll stick with this metallic roughness default material. Click Create. And then inside the same package, new substance graph, and our second graph will be called Hedge Planes. And then we'll save our package. Select our project folder, which for me is Red Robin, and we will call this Red Robin Hedge. Next we'll link our resources. So just go to our package, link. You can do import, but if you go back and change either the mesh or the hand painting components we did, then you have to re-import them. So it's better to just choose link and keep your folders all in the same place. So let's link a 3D scene. I'm going to go and grab our FBX file that we just exported. We can drag that into here, see if it all looks as it should. Yeah, we've got both parts of our mesh, we've got the base and we've got all the planes. Good. And then we'll link our hand painted parts that we did in Photoshop, which is bitmap. And it's put us to our project folder. Just select all of them and open. And there we go. So we're currently inside our hedge base graph. So let's just drag in our 4 bitmaps. Right there. And then we're going to use an Atlas scatter node. So let's just grab one of those. The shortcut to get to the nodes is spacebar. Just type in Atlas and we want the scatter one in this case. Going to need an Atlas scatter node for the branches and another one for the leaves. Let's just set the branches one up first. So here's our colour map. There's the opacity. If you look on here, we've got a base colour input, and right here we've got an opacity. It also seems to need a height one as well, but we can sort that out by just using a grayscale converter here. So plug in the base over here, the opacity here. We'll just need to switch this bitmap to grayscale, and then out of this one you just type in grey. There we go, grayscale conversion, and we will just plug that in there, because if before we plug it in, just have a look. Right now it's black. Doesn't seem to be registering it. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but then as soon as you plug in a height map, it works. So if you haven't come across this Atlas scatter node before, basically all it does, it's just like the regular scatter node, where it just takes a bunch of inputs and scatters them about and allows you to rotate them and scale them. But what it also does is it takes one bitmap and it crops them for you. So it literally just detects the individual shapes and then takes those and scatters them individually, which is fantastic. It saves us loads of space and time as well. So if we come over to the settings, you should see here we've got the amount that we can change. I think we are going to need them much less because these are quite big branches. So let's just go with 8 by 8 for now. Probably need less than that. So the pattern range is important. If it's at 0, it's going to use all of the available shapes. In this case, we've got 4. But you can also choose whether you just want it to use 1, which will be the first one it picks out, 2, 3, then 4 is all of them, and then everything above that is also 4. So let's just put it back down to 0 because we want to use everything. And everything else is really the same as a normal scatter node. You've got the size, all the scale settings, the position, the rotation. The rotation random is automatically set to 1, which is, we'll keep it at that for now. I think for now we'll just turn the scale up because these are very small. We want them to overlap. We want it to look like the inside of a hedge, basically, with all the branches overlapping. So maybe something like that. Put a little bit of scale random on it as well. And I think that's fine for now. Let's move on to the leaves. We'll get a fresh atlas scatter node. We'll do the same thing again. That one goes into the base colour. This one goes into the opacity. Change it to grayscale. And we just need a height map. So grayscale conversion. Plug that into the height. And then we've got all our lovely little leaves. So let's go straight to the size. We'll turn the scale up, and I think position random we're going to need on here as well, if they're all too uniform. Maybe something like that. Yeah, a bit less rotation random. That's fine for now. We will sort all these out properly later, exactly how big we want the leaves, how big we want the branches. But for now, that's fine. So I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll have a layer of leaves on the bottom, then we'll have our branches, and then we'll do another layer of leaves on the top. It should make it look more full. So let's start blending these two together. Move them over here a bit, give us some space. Then if we take our leaf base colour and we'll get a blend node. That will need to go on the bottom. Get the one from our branches, put it in there. Okay, now in order to see the leaves through the branches, we're going to need the mask, it's called, on the output, and plug that into the mask there. There we go, so we've got leaves behind our branches. So next, let's copy this base colour stuff for the leaves here. Control C, and then pop it up here. And let's just change the rotation, not that one. Turn the scale up a little bit, because these are going to be on the top. We can give it some more position random. And rotation random as well. Just put that all the way to 1. And then we'll blend this in as well. So grab the colour. Actually, grab this one first. Blend. Pop that in there. And then we need the mask from that one. There we go. 3 layers. All looking quite good. In order for us to be able to view what we're doing so far on our mesh, we have to set a few things up. So if we go over to our mesh here, you'll see that there are 2 materials that we brought in from Blender. So what we need to do is we need to assign our Hedge planes graph to the Hedge planes material and the Hedge base graph to the Hedge base material, so that Substance Designer knows where to display each graph. So if we come up to our Hedge base graph up here and we right click, we select View Outputs in 3D View, and then it will ask us which material we want to view it on. In this case it's the Hedge base, and then we just need to plug this in to our base colour node, which should be this one here. Let's just have a look. Yep, it's called base colour. So there we go, and if you look under the planes here, you can see that we're starting to get something. Now it's currently got a black background, but that's okay because we're going to deal with that with our opacity in a moment. So the only other node that we need that our metallic roughness material didn't come with as default is our opacity node. So we need to go and create one of those. So click down here, go to add node, or you can just press space bar. We need an output node. You can just pop it across here, and we just need to go and tell it that we want an opacity node. So cross out output here and call it opacity. Same with the label, and then down here under usage we need to add an item and just change it to opacity, and then that node will act as an opacity output node. So now we need to just put our opacity map together. Let's just make a little bit of space here so we can see what we're doing better. And all we need to do is what we did here with the blend nodes for the colour map, we just need to do the exact same thing for the opacity map. So we'll go and grab our mask from here and we'll stick it into a blend node. We need the same one from over here, put it into the foreground, and then we just need to use the same mask again from the foreground so that we can see the leaves through it. And then we need another blend. And same thing again with the top scatter node. Get the mask, plug it into the foreground, and then also use it as the mask. If you have a look down here, that's our opacity map. Go and plug it into here. And we are going to need to tell it that we want it to view it on here because we already set these up, but this one's new. So if we just go to the node, view in 3D view. It's for the Hedge base, and it is an opacity. It does look like it's turned white to start with, but that's just because we've got all those planes there. But it is actually transparent, and we'll see that better once we've done our planes. So we have more to do on this Hedge base one yet, but for now let's go over to the Hedge planes graph and make a start on that, because I really just want to get rid of all these white planes so we can see what we're doing better. So let's switch over to our other graph. And we'll bring our bitmaps in again. We'll need to create an opacity node. Add node output. Pop it here. Do the same thing we did before. Opacity. So let's display all our nodes in the 3D view. So we right click in an empty space. View outputs in 3D view, and it's hedge planes. Now, as you'll see, the planes all vanish, and that is because our opacity map is blank at the moment. It's just black, which is transparent. If we go and plug this straight into it, you'll then see that we've got a load of branches. And similarly, if we go and plug the colour into our base colour, we'll start getting our colour through as well. Okay, but let's disconnect these for now, because that's not how we're going to be setting them up. I'm going to do a little bit of organisation, and we're going to use some dot nodes and frames to just keep everything organised. We're going to have quite a lot of nodes going on here. So first thing I want to do, let's pull out a dot node from each of these. We'll name this one branch colour. This one branch opacity. Leaf colour. And leaf opacity. Let's put a frame around it. Add frame. Make it a nice colour. I like to turn the alpha up on them as well so we can see them better. And just call it resources. Just noticed our leaf opacity map here is still in colour. We just need to change that to grayscale. And then we're going to get an atlas splitter node. Have a look on here, you've got a bunch of inputs again. So let's get a dot node. And we're going to connect this one to leaf colour. And then we're going to do the same for the opacity. I'm going to connect that to leaf opacity. If we have a look inside here, it has selected one of our leaves for us. Just neaten these up. Okay, so if we come across here to the parameters, first thing we want to do is we want to turn auto crop to true for our leaves, and that will leave as little empty space around the leaf as possible. You'll see here as well we've got a shape selection, so you can see what that's doing. We've got 4 leaves and it'll just go through them, and after number 4 it will be blank because we've only got 4 leaves. So we'll leave that at 1, and then what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this 3 more times. Right. Just neaten these up. And then we just need to make sure that each one has a different leaf selected. Number 2. Number 3. And number 4. So each one of these leaves is going to be getting fed into a scatter on splines node. And in order for that to work, we cannot have a background colour on it because it will include the background colour when it scatters it. So what we need to do here is we're going to need to blend this result here with the opacity map. So let's just get a blend node. The base colour needs to go into the foreground and then the opacity into the map. And then that background is transparent now. So what I'm going to do is from the output, we're going to do a dot node. And we'll give this a name of leaf 1 colour. And we'll also pull out a dot node from the opacity map. And we'll call that leaf 1 opacity. I'm just going to do that for the other 3 leaves. Okay, with that done, just going to frame that up. Add frame, and we will call this one Leaf Atlas Splitters. Okay, let's move these back a little bit. And now each branch is going to need its own atlas splitter. And it's also going to need its own frame because once we've split off each branch, we're going to be using it to lay splines on top. So let's get an atlas splitter. Okay, then into the base colour, I'm going to do a dot node, and we need branch colour, and same for the opacity, and we'll connect that to branch opacity. Inside the atlas splitter, it's already going to be at the first shape, so we don't need to change that. We're going to leave auto crop at false because we do actually need some space around the branches so that we have room for the leaves. Let me just check everything else. I think all the other settings are just absolutely fine as they are for now. The next node we need is going to be a spline polyquadratic. There we go, right down there. And we're going to plug in the opacity into the preview. So there we can see our branch and we can see where our splines need to go. So let's just bring this view up so we can see what we're doing a bit better. As you can see, the points are all numbered here. So all we need to do is just work from the bottom and just place our points. With the polyquadratic node, you can change the amount of points. So if you need more points because it's not quite bending around a piece of stick or something, then you can just add another point. I think 4 should do it for this one. Really want to make sure that that the spline isn't sticking out of the branch anywhere, because just keep in mind that we are going to be adding leaves to these splines. Okay, so that's the first one. Let's copy and paste this one, and then we need to plug the 3 yellow spline ones across. And because we copied it, our spline's in the exact same place that we left it, so we just need to move this one to another branch. So you can see here that the spline is not directly behind the branch, so we can just try to move it across a little bit. If you bring the preview across from this node as well, it'll tell you where your other points are from the other splines. Come up to here, you can put it into material mode and then it will just bring them all across at once. So that's the splines for the first branch set up. Pull these over a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to get a scatter on splines node. We need both of them, colour and grayscale, but let's just start with the grayscale one. So, scatter on spline, grayscale. We're going to plug our spline data into the top, and we'll also plug our branch preview in there. Okay, and we're going to need 4 pattern inputs for our 4 leaves. So we need to change the pattern to pattern input, and then we know that we're going to need 4. So change that up to 4, and as you'll see, it's given us 4 pattern inputs right here. Pull this down a little bit and let's get some dot nodes. So this one needs to be leaf 1 opacity. Leaf 2 opacity. leave 3 opacity. And leave 4 opacity. Alright, let's have a look what we've got going on in here. Right, actually this preview that we've plugged in here, we actually want the one without the points numbers on. So if we go back to our Atlas splitter and just get the opacity from that and plug that in there instead. If we go and zoom into this scatter on spline preview here, you'll see that our leaves are actually appearing. They're sticking out of the branch all along here, What's happening at the moment is the pivot point of the leaves is in the centre of every leaf. So the pivot point is in the wrong place, and so it's placing all our leaves along the centre line of the branches where our splines are. So to put that right, we need to come across to our parameters. First of all, let's scale the leaves up so that we can see them much better. Just turn that right up. And as you'll see here, we've got the stems running this way along the bottom, and those are the tops of our leaves. So we need to go back up to the top, and here under shape pivot, we can change the pivot point. So X obviously runs horizontal and Y is vertical. So if we change it here, you'll see that they're coming up to the right place. And that the leaves are then sitting on the branches. So next thing we need to do, go down to rotation. See, we don't want them all facing the same way like that. So we want to rotate at the pivot point that we've just set. We take this one here, the rotation random pivot. And I think we can put that right the way up. You can also try rotating them here, it's not random. But if you want to pre-rotate them before you randomly rotate them, you can. In fact, if we turn the random down to 0, and then you can see what this one's actually doing first. So that's where they start off. And you can have them so that they're all along the spline, they're facing along each spline. Then you could randomly rotate them from there. That looks quite nice, and then they're all still facing somewhat upwards then instead of facing down, which they probably wouldn't be. But really, you can just play with these until you find something that you like. You don't have to use the exact same settings as me. Okay, so let's go and turn the scale up some more. Scale. Here we go, under size. Let's give it some more scale. And then let's give it some scale random as well, which will make some of them smaller again. Actually going to make these quite a bit bigger. Something more like that, looks a bit more realistic. A little bit more scale random. Yeah. Okay, and then one thing I'm noticing is we've got leaves right down at the very bottom of each branch, which I don't think looks very natural. You wouldn't really have them growing right at the very bottom. So come up to the top. And then if we just use this start slider, and what it will do, it will delay the start of the spline so that it only starts putting them on further up the spline. So yeah, I think something more like that is better. And we'll just go and check the position properties down here. You can do a random offset on spline, which will just offset them randomly. Doesn't seem to have too much effect, but it just randomizes the spacing a little bit. Okay, I'm happy with that for now. Just tidy these up. Okay, and now we're going to get a scatter on spline colour, and we're going to copy our parameters across from here to the colour one. Okay, we need to plug our splines in. Okay, then as the background, instead of using this black and white opacity one, we need to go and get the base colour from the atlas splitter. Change it back to standard before I do that. Base colour into the background. Okay. Then all we need to do to match these up, we go to the grayscale one, go right to the top, under our instance parameters, so that is all of the parameters for the whole node. Go to here, copy parameters, and then go to our colour one, same place, and paste them. Okay, so now we just need to input our leaf inputs, our colour ones this time, not the opacity. So we've only got one pattern input here, so let's go and change that to 4. It hasn't copied that across. And then out of here, we need a dot node. Let's just get all the dot nodes first. Dot, dot, dot. Okay, so this first one is leaf 1 colour. Leaf 2 colour. Leaf 3 colour. Leaf 4 colour. Have a look in here now, and then you can see it's scattered them all in colour. How lovely. Right, I still think these leaves aren't big enough though, so let's go back to our black and white one. Go back to the size settings. Let's scale right up. You can go beyond 0.1. Let's try 0.2. Okay, those are huge. Let's go 0.15. Yeah. Maybe a bit big, 0.14. Yeah, I think I like that. Let's just go to the colour one and change it there. Scale was 0.14. Okay, and if we've done everything right, we should have 2 identical branches with leaves here, and they should line up perfectly. Looks like they do. Actually, I've just noticed that this grayscale one only seems to be using 1 single leaf. Look across here, it's still on 1. I don't know when that happened, but I did something silly and it reverted to using 1 leaf. So just turn that back up to number 4. Just check this one's using 4. Yeah. And now they match. Okay, great. Okay, so that's our 1 branch done. Let's frame it up. Give it a pretty colour. Let's go pink. And we'll call it branch 1. Okay, so if you remember, we have 4 branches altogether that we painted. So we're going to need to do this 3 more times. I'm probably just going to fast forward the video through this so you don't have to watch the whole thing again in excruciating detail. But yeah, I'm just going to duplicate everything in this frame and then just change the splines, and that's it. Okay, so we have our 4 branches done. Now we need to set them up on our texture so that all 4 branches fit on correctly. If you remember when we did the UVs in Blender, we split the 4 branches up to take up 1/4 of the space. If we go across here to Scene and say Display UVs in 2D View, we can actually see our UVs here. So the red ones are for the base mesh and the green ones are for our planes. So that's one plane, that's another plane, that's another, and that's another. So what we need to do now is we need to use some 2D transforms to get these into the right places and blend them together. Okay, but before we start rearranging them, first of all, we need to get some crop nodes and we need to crop out all of the blank space at the sides of each branch. So for this one, let's get a crop colour. You can do the cropping just by moving these handles, but hold shift while you do it, because otherwise it will stretch the image in a weird way. You can leave a very tiny border like that. Just make sure that no leaves are going over the edge anywhere. Okay, that one looks good. We need to get a crop grayscale for this one. And then we're just going to copy the parameters across from the colour. So up to here, copy, and paste into this one. And then those should be identical. Yep, that's good. So let's do that for the other 3 branches. Okay, so now we need to place them all in the correct place. So let's start with our opacity maps. We'll take this one and put a 2D transform on it. Transform 2D. I seem to have lost my UVs, so let's just go and switch them back on. And like we did with the crop, we can just manually change this in here. So move this up to here. Now, by default, it will tile it. So to get rid of these other ones, go up to the base parameters, down to tiling mode, across to here, absolute, and then no tiling. Just need to make sure that this is not going off the edges and it's not going into any of the other UV tiles. That's all nice and neatly inside there. That'll be good. And then just go and copy the parameters and do the same with this one. Paste parameters and do the same again with the tiling mode. All good. Do that for the other 3 branches. fact, let's just duplicate this one. Bring it down to here. Plug it in. And just move it across. All good. Duplicate it down to this one. Just going to do that for the other two branches. Okay, now I'm just going to get some blend nodes and we're going to blend our maps together. We'll do the opacity first. So pull that out of there, get a blend. And then plug in this one to the foreground. I'm just going to need to switch this to add. Do the same again, switch it to add. And add this one to it. Oops. Okay, there's our opacity map. We can actually plug that in to our opacity output now and see what that's giving us so far. There we go, lots of lovely black leaves. Looks good. Right, I'm just going to pull these frames across so that these are all inside it. And then just pull these blend nodes up and we'll put them in a frame. Call it opacity blends. Get a colour. That'll do. Okay, and then we just need to do that exact same thing with our colour ones. This one can stay on copy mode. There we go, all looks good. We will put these in a frame. Call it colour blends. And then we can plug that into our colour map. There we go, looking nice. The only other thing I want to do with the colour map is to add a diffusion node to it. So let's just go to the end node here. We'll add a diffusion colour. And we also need to plug our opacity map into it. Now what that does, if I just turn this down, so instead of just having that brown background colour, what it actually does is it extends the colours that we've got on the edges of our leaves and our branches, so that if our opacity map changes for any reason, say we wanted to put a blur on it or we just change it ever so slightly, then it does actually have some colour to bleed into instead of just a uniform background, and it'll just reduce the likelihood of any artifacts around the edges of the leaves and stuff. So yeah, let's stick that in our frame, and I think that is the colour map done. So if we have a look at the other nodes we've got now, we've got nothing plugged into our normal map. Well, we just have a blank normal map. Roughness is just 50% rough, 50% smooth, as it's just grey. So that is resulting in this just even sheen all over everything, which looks awful. Metallic map, we don't need that, we can get rid of it. There's not going to be any metal in our leaves or our branches. The ambient occlusion, we could plug something in there, may or may not need it, it depends on what you're going to use the hedge for. And same with the height map really, probably won't use one, but let's just do one anyway. So let's start with the normal. As you can see, this normal node here, it needs a grayscale input. So let's go and get our base colour map, and we can take the one before the diffusion. We don't need it to have the diffusion on it. Let's put that into a grayscale converter. This one or the advanced one's fine. Let's choose the advanced though, so we've got some more options. Plug that in there. And then you can see our normal map. We'll switch it to OpenGL. It's going to be taken into Blender, so we'll switch it to OpenGL. Okay, that looks good. Go and have a look on our model. So just so you can see the difference. As with no normal map, it's all very smooth, and that is with our normal map plugged in. Turn up the intensity if you like, although you're not going to want it too intense on leaves or that they're going to start looking really crispy. Just turn that down. You want it quite mild, something like that I think. Absolutely fine, we'll leave that there. Although you can have a look at the different grayscale conversion modes, there's a few different ones. I think that one is the most basic one where it just turns it to grayscale. And then there's all these different modes you can have a look at, which just makes slight differences. But yeah, we'll just stick with the first one. Or I will anyway. Okay, so as for the roughness map, we're going to just do a very basic one. We're going to use this grayscale map as our base. As you'll see, the branches are quite dark, which means they're going to be shiny, and the leaves are quite light in comparison, which means that they would be rough. So what we really want to do is switch that around. We want rough looking branches and shinier leaves. So just take this and put an invert grayscale on it. and that will change that all around. Our leaves are now darker than the branches. You can try plugging that in as it is. I'm going to get rid of this uniform colour and this one, as we don't need them. And let's just have a look how it looks on here. I think that already looks a bit better. Just going to switch the renderer over to the path tracer. Makes it look a lot nicer. Yeah, I think I'm fairly happy with that roughness map as it is, but you could also put levels on it and just adjust it a little bit. So maybe just make the darks a bit darker. So some parts of the leaves will be very shiny. Yeah, I think I quite like that. But anyway, have a play around with it. You can do it however you like. You can make it look however you like. Let's just put a little frame around these. Because they're exclusively for the roughness map. And then the other two, ambient occlusion and our height maps, like I said, we'll probably never need them, but let's just do one anyway. We can just put the height map straight into there. And as you'll see, it just gives you some shadowing on the leaves. And actually, I don't want a height map at all, so I'm just going to get rid of these altogether. That can go as well. And yeah, I think that's looking pretty nice. Colours are looking nice, roughness is looking good. So, this base hedge under here needs a little bit more work still. The leaves underneath look a lot smaller than what we've got on the planes on top. And also, I don't like how the leaves are just getting cut off at the very bottom. Just look, someone's took a shrimmer to them or something. So let's go and sort that out. For now, I'm just going to unplug this opacity map here so that we can see what we've got going on underneath. And let's do a quick save and switch over to our hedge base graph. Alrighty, so let's just first of all go and get rid of the nodes we don't need from down here. That's our height map gone and the metal map. Okay, so if you remember on this one, what we did was we did a layer of leaves, layer of branches, and then a layer of leaves again at the bottom. I have noticed that one looks good. Branches look fine. But these ones here, the rotation, it looks like it's still in a grid. So let's just go and have a little play about with this. I think if we go to the position random I think we just need to adjust that a little bit to make it look a bit more natural. Yep, I think something like that's all right. Okay, if you have a look at our nodes at the bottom here, we have one called mask random. We're going to use this to plug in a mask that is then going to remove the leaves from the very, very bottom of our hedge. So let's pull a nodal out from here and we will get a shape node. So as default, that just gives us a white square. First thing we want to do is we want to go into our base parameters and we need to turn off the tiling for this one. So go to absolute and then no tiling. Close that back up. Okay. After this, we'll get a 2D transform. And then all we want to do is just pull the bottom up a little bit so that we've got a black line at the bottom. We go into the node here and go right down to the very bottom. You'll see that we have these masking settings. The mask random map multiplier is how much this slider is going to affect this. So let's turn it right the way up to 1. And then if you see here, you'll see that we have lost a row of leaves from the bottom. Obviously we still have these ones coming from the top. They're actually at the top, but they're overlapping and tiling round to here. So what we need to do there is just extend this black line so it's at the top as well. Go into here. Just bring this down. We just need to adjust it so that none of these leaves at the top are overlapping and going around to the bottom. And same with the bottom. We just go and zoom in, have a little look. That's all looking much better. The leaves are not getting cut off drastically anymore. I think that will probably work well. Okay, but we do have two nodes the same here. We've got the top leaves and the bottom leaves, so we can just go and plug this into the bottom one as well. I'd help if I could see. Mask random. Now we can go into this node and do the same. Go down to the mask settings and just switch this one to 1. And as you can see on our model now, we've just got branches coming down but no leaves, which looks much better. Right, next, I think I would like to make the branches underneath here a bit bigger as they are looking a little bit twig-like. So let's go up to here. Might reduce the amount, but let's just try the scale settings at the moment. So let's take the scale up. Yeah, so we're definitely going to need to reduce the amount. So to here, we've currently got 8. Let's try maybe 4. Scale back down. Yep, I think I like that. Looks better. Okay, so I would actually like to try and get rid of some of these branches at the very bottom as well. Obviously they do come to an abrupt end here and it doesn't look the best. So only problem is if we try and do what we did with the leaves, it's going to mask out huge branches because each branch is taking up quite a lot of space on here. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to mask it off afterwards. So after this and before this, we're just going to put a mask at the very bottom here, and we'll do it manually like that. Okay, so let's get a blend node. We'll put the mask into the foreground, and then out of the opacity, going to get a waveform node. We have a quick look in our blend. You can see that that is masking off the black parts. So what we need to do is just switch it to subtract instead. And I think just switch these around. That's it. So waveform into the foreground and our branches into the background. We will put a 2D transform on the waveform. And just bring this right down to the bottom like that. And then in the waveform settings, obviously this is far too big of a mask at the moment. Let's actually plug this blend into the opacity over here so we can see it on the model what it's doing. So it's getting rid of far too much branch at the moment. So let's go back to the waveform and we can bring down our amplitude max quite drastically. Bring the amplitude minimum up a little bit so it's not quite so noisy. And then I think we'll also bring the roughness down, just smooth it all out a little bit. Have a look what that's doing to our blend now. It is causing some weirdness here. Let's go back to the settings. Bring the scale down. And it will just smooth it out a little bit. Yeah, I think I like how that looks. It looks like the branches are just being cut off naturally instead of just in a straight line. And on the model as well, I think they look much better. I'm happy with that. Let's just put these in a frame so we know exactly what they are when we come back to it. We'll just call it branch mask. Give it a little colour. Brown for branch. Okay, so I think next we should deal with the roughness and normal maps. Obviously with the roughness map just being 50% smooth at the moment, it's just giving the whole thing this horrible boxy shiny look, so let's go and sort that out. This is our final colour map here. Let's turn it into a grayscale. Grayscale conversion advanced. And let's plug that straight into the normal map for now. Switch it to OpenGL. And that's giving us a little bit of texture on our leaves now. Maybe something like that. For the roughness, we're going to do what we did before and invert the grayscale mask. Invert grayscale. Then we'll put the levels on it. Plug that in there. And you see immediately, because that background is white now, that we've lost all that shininess where the transparency was, which is much better. Just bring these in a little closer. I want the leaves dark and the branches more rough. Yep, I think that looks nice. Put a frame around these. Roughness. And then I'm just going to plug this one straight into the ambient occlusion. You can always put levels on it and adjust it separately if you like. Okay, so let's do that as save. Go back to our hedge planes. I'm just going to plug our opacity map back in. Bring our planes back. Okay, that's looking nice. Now when we get back into Blender, we're going to take these with us, the textures that we've just made, and then we can rearrange our planes a bit. Obviously we've got a corner here where we've got no planes and you can just see the box underneath, which we don't really want. That box is just there just as a background. But yeah, we can sort all that out in Blender before we do our final render. Okay, so all that's left to do in Substance Designer now is to export our bitmaps. So let's go over here to the graph, export outputs. I think I'm just going to make a subfolder, especially for the textures. So let's go into here, in our project folder, new folder, let's just call it finished textures. Okay, so yeah, it's just going to call it Hedge, base, and then which map it is, that's all fine. And we want to do all of them, so just go export outputs. I think that just did it. And then let's go to our hedge planes one. export outputs. Same thing again, make sure the folder's correct. Export outputs. Great. So next we're going to take these textures into Blender, we're going to set them up on our model again, and then we're going to create a little turntable with our hedge in the middle, and we're going to do a little video animation of it turning round. We're going to set up all the lighting to go with it as well. So yeah, I'll see you back in Blender.